Hi class, this is Neil, and this is the third video in lesson 5. Alright, in this portion of the video, we're going to be introduced to the 3 reciprocal trig functions. So our first reciprocal trig function that we're going to look at is secant. And that's abbreviated as SEC. So secant of an angle is really just the reciprocal of cosine. So it's 1 over cosine of an angle. Another way to think of secant is cosine flipped upside down. So it would be hypotenuse over adjacent. Our next reciprocal trig function is called cosecant. Cosecant is abbreviated CSC. And that's the same thing as 1 over sine of an angle. Another way to think of cosecant is sine flipped upside down. So hypotenuse over opposite. Right? The third reciprocal trig function is cotangent. And that's abbreviated COT. Okay, so that's the same as 1 over tangent of theta. Another way to think about that is normal tangent is opposite over adjacent. So this would be adjacent over opposite. We can also think of cotangent if we go back to our new identity for tangent as cosine of theta over sine of theta. But that won't be important for most of the problems you'll be looking at today. All right, let's look at our example. In the right triangle BCD, BD equals 12, and that's labeled for us. The measure of angle C equals 90, that's indicated here. And the measure of angle DBC is 47. All right, there's that 47-degree angle right there. Determine the ratio of secant of B and round any values to the nearest tenth. All right, so let's take a look at how we would set this problem up. Go ahead and label the sides of my triangle. This would be opposite. This is adjacent. And this is hypotenuse. All right, so we need to determine the ratio of secant of B given the information that we have. All right, so I'm going to write secant of 47 degrees. And now remember, secant is the same as the hypotenuse over the adjacent side. So that equals 12 over adjacent. I don't know what my adjacent side is. I could just use the capital letter A. So to solve for secant, I'm going to multiply both sides by A. We'll cancel here. Then I'll have A times secant of 47 degrees equals 12. Right? Solving for A, which is what I'm looking for here, I'm going to divide both sides by secant of 47. All right, let's turn to our calculator here. So 12 divided by, look at my functions for secant of 47, and I get 8.18 to the nearest tenth, so let's do 8.2. All right, so A equals 8.2. So to write our ratio there, secant of 47 is equal to 12 over 8.2. And that's kind of our final answer. All right, in the problems that follow, use how these reciprocal trig functions are defined to help you answer these questions. All right, and I think there's 3 of them. So thinking about what cosecant represents, how can we go back to sine? Remember, cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. How does that relate to sine? Right, for question 2, we're given a sine value and we're given a cosine value. Think about what these tell you in terms of your triangle. So opposite over hypotenuse, opposite over adjacent. And what's the definition of cotangent? For question 3, we're given a measure of an angle, we're given a secant ratio, and we're asked to determine the measure of angle A. So we would need to use maybe our inverse secant, which you'll see on the calculator. What does this tell me about my triangle? Well, secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. So use that to help you label this triangle here, given where angle A is located. All right, I'll see you in the next video.